Hello and welcome to Filmi Ladies. It's going to be Shashi Kapoor's birthday, so of course we're going to do an episode because there are many things we agree on, and this is one of the biggest, most
Yes.
important, most delicious things that we could agree on as Filmi fans. And
Question for you. Do
yes,
you think you could be friends with someone who did not like Shashi Kapoor? Like actively disliked him?
oh, I was about to say I probably am, and I don't know it,
You
but
probably
people
don't know it
haven't
for a
told me.
reason. Right?
But when you said actively dislike, then I'm like, I don't know. But I certainly am friends with people who are kind of benignly ambivalent or just sort of like he's
Okay.
okay, but
Okay.
but I don't actually think I've met anyone who's actively anti Shashi Kapoor.
I haven't either, which is why I think it would be like a shocking thing to hear. If
It
someone
would
was
be a
like, ugh,
shocking
I
thing
hate
to
him, I'd be
hear.
like, really? Are you crazy? Okay.
Listeners, if you know anyone, please tell us because it's an ethnographic study at this point. Is there such a vanishing breed? So we're celebrating his birthday this year by looking at two of his non-Indian films because of course he did all these different kinds of things. And when we say non-Indian, we are not just talking Merchant and Ivory, which of course is sort of half Indian at the very least anyway.
Hmm.
We're really going for it. So Pitu has watched Siddhartha from 1972, the adaptation of the Herman Hesse novel, which I also rewatched so that I could join in. Oh, look at that. She's got the book. I've never
I
read
have
the
the
book.
book.
Did you read the book?
I did. It took me
Okay.
only 2 days because it's such a slim volume.
Slim.
But yeah.
Okay. And then I rewatched the 1987 British movie by Stephen Frears, Sammy and Rosie Get Laid, which I have also seen before in my quest to see all the Shashi Kapoor films that I can. This is written by Hanif Qureshi of My Beautiful Laundrette,
Ooh,
among other
love
things,
that.
right? So this is if people haven't seen this movie, it taps into a lot of people that you probably have encountered through other things, and I do recommend it, but we'll get into that. We're going to do Siddhartha first because if we didn't, the weight of universe and well-being and all those things would be crushing us down. So let's
Yeah.
let's begin the discourse. Um,
Okay.
in rewatching this movie, I thought to myself, "Am I smart enough to understand this movie?" And I don't know. Are you smart enough to
Um,
understand this movie?
okay, I did not like the movie at all. I thought the movie was so silly and so pretentious and
It
so
is pretentious.
terrible.
Yeah.
It's so pretentious. Now, here's the sequence in which I did this, right? So, my husband is a humongous fan of Herman Hesse's novel Siddhartha, and we've had
Oh.
this volume in our bookcase for
Ah.
like years, like years and years and years.
Wow.
This is his copy, and it's one of his favorite books, and he has been nagging me through the years to read it. And of course, being this ridiculously stubborn person, I just never bothered to read it because we have very different tastes in books and movies. So I was like, if you like it that much, I'm probably not gonna like it.
Right.
So it was just being like difficult. And finally I was like, here's an opportunity for me to read the source material and then also watch the movie, because I've actually been interested in the movie for a really long time, mostly because I like Shashi and I like Simi Gurewal.
Hmm.
Whereas the topic, because the topic is not interesting to me, that's why I avoided the book. I regret to say that the book is actually really good. And
Mm.
I have been proven wrong. I thought I would absolutely hate this book, but I actually really enjoyed it. Now, is it one of my top favorite? Absolutely not, because I primarily like horror and paranormal stuff, and this is a little too like rarefied
And
for
Thomas
me.
Hardy.
I love Thomas Hardy. Oh, I like anything emo and Victor Hugo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dickens. Oh, anything emo is my jam. This book is not emo. If
Oh.
anything, this book is like, it's very like about, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like Imtiaz Ali. Like the concept is like basically what is with these books and movies where there's this young man and he wants to
Wow.
find his place in the world and he wants to see where he fits into like the galaxy or whatever, and he's thinking about what does life mean, and what is the universe, and what is atma. And I like, I don't know, I am probably a very shallow person, but I have never asked these questions because I don't care. um and this book is like about like Buddhism, and suffering leads to attachment, and no, attachment leads to suffering, and we shouldn't be too attached to things, and it follows the life of this fictional character called Siddhartha. So this book is not about the Buddha.
Right.
The character just happens to be named Siddhartha, and his life is like a little bit in parallel to the Buddha's life. And he does actually have an encounter with the Buddha in the book. But in the book, Siddhartha character is he's just a Brahmin boy living in his home, and he has always wanted to like discover the things. And him and his friend Govinda, they I did not have much patience for their antics, but first they joined like a bunch of ascetics,
Yeah.
like monks or whatever, and they're like trying to find their way. And then one day, I guess
Those are
Siddhartha,
Hindu monks, yes?
I couldn't tell because
Okay.
they said samanas, and I don't know what
Mm,
that is. So I couldn't tell if it was Hindu or Buddhist or
okay.
like an amalgamation or fusion. I don't know. But they were doing all of this and fasting and incantations and all sorts of things. And then one day, Siddharth decides he's had enough of it. And Govinda, his friend, takes sort of like Diksha with the Buddha. Like they meet the actual Buddha, and Govinda becomes like a legit Buddhist follower of the Gautama Buddha. Siddharth, on the other hand, goes in the extremely opposite route where he is absolutely transfixed by a very beautiful courtesan called Kamla. And he's like, teach me your ways. And she teaches him the ways of love. And then he doesn't have a job. And in the book, as well as in the movie, this was very funny to me. Kamla is like, so people who come to me are rich and they have nice clothes and nice shoes and they have scents in their hair, and you have none of these things. Like he has a beard and he's dirty. And he's like, well, I don't have money. And she's like, okay, like how are you going to get money? And what can you do? And he goes, well, I can think and I can fast. And I'm like, cool. I will update my resume with this. Important skills that
In
Pitu
this
has. She
economy?
can think. Yeah, I'm gonna write that. Like I can think and I can fast. And Kamala is of course not impressed at all. She's like, you stupid boy, right? And then she's like, well, what else can you do? And then he's so full of himself. And then he's like, well, also I can read and write. And that she's impressed by
Yeah.
because there are not very many people who can read and write. And he takes that for granted, but even she cannot read and write. So she's like, this is great. So she um like helps him meet this like trader merchant. And Siddharth basically, I think he basically works as like an accountant for him or something. Like he basically just does work for him. And that's how then he gets into this life of like this very lavish life. And then he slowly becomes the kind of people that he hates. By the way, he refers to people like you and me who have like jobs and cares and children and worries and shopping and drink. He refers to us as child people. I wanted to smack him because he was like, well, they're not thinking about the Atma. I'm like, I don't care about the Atma. Also, I was reading this while eating a Haagen-Dazs ice cream. So I was like, damn right, I don't care about the Atma. I do, however, care about how crunchy and delicious this chocolate coating on my ice cream bar is. So I was like, F you, Siddharth. So anyway, he hates all the child people. And then he decides that he needs to go do something else. So then he finds this like rower on the river fisherman called Vasudev. Also, please note that Govinda and Vasudev are both names of Krishna.
Mm.
And so he, becomes like a fisherman person with this river person. And towards the end of the book, he has twice he meets Govinda, and both times they can't recognize each other and stuff because, metamorphosis. And then in the end, he comes to this amazing epiphany that actually life is to be lived. This is what I got. Okay, I could be very wrong, but like life is to be lived and we should feel all the things, which I was like, that's right. And he was like, and like attachment does lead to suffering, but like that's fine. And also the greatest teacher is the river. And I was like,
Ah,
okay,
okay.
cool. And then I put my book aside and I was very tired of all the navel gazing. And then I watched Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So that was my day, Beth. And then I went on Goodreads and gave it a 3.5 rating. So there's this whole genre of literature that I feel annoys me. But I know so many men who love these books and love
Yeah.
these movies where a person is trying to find their place in the world. And I don't know what it says about me that I have never tried to do that. I've just lived my life and had fun. And there's so much navel gazing and philosophizing and talking about lofty ideas. And to me, I'm just like, y'all be so pretentious. Like, you're taking yourself so seriously. And having said that, I think the book is very well written, and I think the book will actually appeal to people who have read Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali, which
Oh.
I have a copy of. I don't enjoy that book either. Just FYI, apparently I'm just a hater. But if people like Gitanjali, then I think they will really like Siddharth. They have certain similarities to them,
Mm.
and I think people who like Imtiaz Ali's movies will also like Siddharth the book. I recommend the book. I think it's very good. Herman Hesse did win the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1946, not necessarily for this book, because this book was written, it was published in 1922. I think he just got the Nobel Prize for his general works, but Siddharth is his most famous book, and the original is in German. And of course, we read the English translation. So having watched my book, I was like, okay, let's start this movie. And I'm so glad I did it in that order, because the movie is awful. So I would say that the movie is watchable only because if you like Shashi, and especially if you like Simi Garewal, I thought she was awesome in it. Shashi was, it's not his fault. I think the character is just so irritating that I wanted to smack him a lot of times, but I wanted to
He's
smack the character in the book also.
he is really carrying this film, I would
He
say,
is.
apart from perhaps the locations, which I thought were
They're pretty.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I didn't look up where they filmed, but lots of,
It
real
looked
structures
like
and
the
palaces
North to
and
me. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, I find Shashi in this film stilted
Yes.
and sort of I'm making pronouncements in every single dialogue.
Yes.
And the dialogues are not his fault, obviously. And this
Right.
film is in English, so, but the stiltedness probably is his fault. And I regret to say it because I think he's an amazing choice for this character. If you must make this film, that was the right call. I don't really know
Yes.
who else you could possibly have chosen, unless there's some like FTII guy that, I don't know of or whatever. But
Yeah.
Shashi is a great choice for this, especially in English. But it's just I don't know, rich man telling me what he thinks about thinking. No thanks. We've had
It's
plenty of that.
it's
No thank you.
so privileged. Like his
Yeah.
point of view is so
Yeah.
spoiled, it's so privileged. And
Yeah.
like him going around telling people things like him saying to the merchant Kamaswamy, the merchant, I gathered we're supposed to dislike him, but I actually thought he was the one voice of reason in this movie, or book. He's basically like, the merchant is like, what can you do and what can you provide? And he's, Siddharth basically lives off of people's
Yeah,
kindnesses.
he does. Yeah.
And I'm like, you're kind of a parasitical person. I don't like you. And for you to go around like speaking in this very patronizing, lofty tone and telling people what they should do, I'm like, how about you earn your own living, sir? How about you get a job and then maybe you can tell people? So it's just the character is so irritating that I I mean the book and the movie is being pretty true to its source material, I
Mm.
would say. I mean, not like the stiltedness or the theatricality, but the character, that's what
Yeah.
that character is. I mean, eventually he gets less and less annoying. And eventually when he has a son, I feel like, some humility is basically drummed into
Yeah.
him, but he's so full of himself. He's such a blowhard. And that is the character, and
Yeah.
that's how Shashi plays him.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I believe like in the book and in the movie, especially in the book, you're supposed to see his friendship with Govinda as being like this really lovely friendship. And I wonder
Mm-hmm.
if Herman Hesse was trying to draw on like the Krishna and Sudama friendship parallel
Mm.
or something. But again, I don't want a friend like Siddharth. Siddharth thinks he's better than Govinda every step
Yeah.
of the way. Like he's the leader and Govinda's the follower. Like he's not your sidekick, but he also is. And I was just like, this friendship also is just, there's this weird power imbalance. One of my favorite things about the book as well as the movie, actually, I have to say, like, I loved Simi putting him in his place, because he's like, he refers to himself as like a pebble that is thrown into a river, and how, he gets things. And there's this long soliloquy in the book about how good things happen to him and he manages to get the things he wants implying that it's because of his will and it's because he doesn't force things, but like almost like he's in a state of flow and he's allowing things to happen, which sounded very vaguely like manifestation theory to me. Not that I'm into that either, but just what I gathered from it, right? Like just being still and letting the things come to you. And she just cuts him down to size with one line. She's like, well, it also helps you're pretty, you know? And I mean, she doesn't say it like that, but she basically implies, well, you have pretty privilege. You're a good looking man. You're a strapping young boy. You're a Brahmin. You
Hmm.
can read and write. Like it's all of that privilege that helps you get what you want, not just you being like there and in an accepting flow or state. And I love that scene in the movie as well, where Sammy just boop cuts him down. I was like, yes, girl, do it. Do it more. But you're right, like it's he's stilted and there's like this theatricality, like
Yeah.
I am thespian
Hmm.
quality to it.
Hmm.
Also, I don't know what it is, it just bothers me so much when I hear Indian actors portraying Indian characters from a period time, but they speak perfect Queen's English.
Right.
It's so like it's so weird
Which
to me,
doesn't
like,
exist at that time, and if it did, it wouldn't be there. And like, yeah.
right. First of all, they shouldn't even be speaking in English, but I
Well,
understand that it's an
yeah,
English language form. I have no problem with that.
yeah.
That's okay. But like, it's so weird to have them say, well, Govinda, that's what I think. What do you think? And I'm like, what is happening? You're wearing a dhoti kurta. But that's just, I mean, I think that just comes with the territory, so it's fine. But it's very weirdly stilted. I actually think that Simi Garewal was my best, was my favorite
Sure.
thing about the movie, and I actually feel like she overshadowed him. But that's also because I felt like that character made so much more sense to me.
Mm.
You know, what did you think of Simi in this movie?
I think she's good. I think she's very good in this. She has the most interesting role after him, I would say,
Hmm.
and she's not nearly as irritating. So, um, but I do think it sounds like this might be in the book, but in the film, which is, the only version I have interacted
Yeah.
with, I feel like there's this tokenization of everybody. Like everyone sort of exists as a type to share something with him
Yes.
that either like tosses another pebble in his pool and he has to deal with those ripples, or they receive his ripples, or whatever. So
Yeah.
it kind of everyone in this is a symbol or something, and it's not I can't latch on to this very well. I will
Yeah.
also say maybe that's appropriate since attachment causes suffering. And I have to say, every time I have tried to get my brain around Buddhism, even a little bit, that is the point
Yeah.
at which I stick and I'm out.
Yeah.
I
Same.
don't understand. I seem to be incapable of understanding what that means, or if I do understand it, I very much reject it.
I
So
just completely reject it.
yeah,
Yeah.
not to, put down an entire belief system based on
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
sentence,
No.
but that seems to be key, and I can't comprehend that,
Yeah.
um, or I don't like it. Either one. So yeah, this is not a particularly successful product, cultural, artistic product to me. Um, there is a print on YouTube for free that is bad, but you can, if you're interested in this, I would recommend let it wash over you. If you do not need English
Hmm.
subtitles, um, I think you can just sort of have this on while you are working on your knitting project, or, having a
I actually
snack or
watched it
whatever.
on YouTube with English subtitles, Beth.
Oh, with subtitles.
Yeah,
Okay.
it had inbuilt Spanish subtitles, which I could not turn off. But
Right.
then when I
That's
clicked
what I
on the
saw.
CC, it allowed me
Ah,
to do the English
okay.
because the audio wasn't like super clear for me. So I was like, I'm just going to put the English subtitles on
Yeah, the
anyway.
audio is a little rough as well.
Yeah.
Um, there's two things I think we do need to talk about this film, talk about this film for, which we haven't yet. One is the sex scene between Simi and Shashi, which is legendary, which the Indian Censor Board had a fit about. Um, I thought they did well,
I thought they, well, it started off well and then it looked like gymnastics.
a little bit,
Yeah. And I was
but
like, what
not,
is happening? Are you
but not.
dying?
If we're
Yeah.
given the time period and what everyone is probably thinking this refers to,
Yeah.
like that's fine.
So I felt like some of the choreography was good. I also thought that Shashi and Simi had amazing
They
chemistry,
do, yeah,
which I have never seen them as a couple. Like, when you see them in Kabhi Kabhi and stuff
yeah.
like that, they're married to other people. There's no like,
Ooh, I feel like I have seen them, but it's maybe when they're a little bit older, so they're more like
hmm,
mom, ma, pa, but I can't remember.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I thought they did, because when you come mostly from a film tradition that very rarely does this, right? You
Mm.
can't really expect people to have experience doing this kind of acting. And I thought that they did a really good job. And I would assume, I don't actually know her background, but his, obviously he has some theater training, but I don't think he's doing this with the Kendall family Shakespeare troupe.
Well,
So I thought they were pretty convincing.
yeah, and I actually was really taken with Simi's role as well because like my favorite Simi Garewal role is probably her as the femme fatale in Curse because she's
Sure.
so amazing. She owns it. Other than that, she's almost always relegated to like extremely upper class, richy rich, speaks with a very posh
Yeah.
accent person wearing pearls and chiffons. And it was kind of really cool to see her not playing a rarefied character and to play someone who is so much more down to earth, but at the same time she's a courtesan and she's so aware of sort of like the power imbalances in society and so aware of like status and things like that. And I think she really kind of like oozed sensuality to me in this movie, not quite in the Rekha and Utsav kind of way, which is much more overt, but
Mm.
more in this sort of softer way, and it felt very natural to me. Like I love Amrapali, but in Amrapali, Vajantimala definitely is very much like a coquette, and she's meant to be, and it's fine. But I feel like the way Simi Grewal played her was, I actually found her very relatable
Mm.
for a courtesan from that
Mm.
era.
Mm-hmm.
She seemed like someone I could have a conversation with. So I think
Mm-hmm.
Simi did such a good job of
Mm-hmm.
portraying a lady of yore,
Mm-hmm.
but also like a thinking actual individual who has a mind of her own who can have conversations with Siddharth. Like
Yeah.
I really like that one conversation they have in bed. It looks like they've just had sex or something and they're just kind of in bed, and then he tells her that you're very similar to me, and she says, why do you say that? And he says it's because neither of us love anything really,
Yeah.
like, and in that moment like she looks sad,
Yeah.
but she doesn't disagree with him.
Right.
And I felt like she did that really well. I think
Mm-hmm.
that a poorer actress would probably have overreacted too much in that scene or something. She's very
Mm-hmm.
nuanced and lovely. I do think this is like getting up there in my Simi
Mm-hmm.
performances. I wanted to ask you, to what extent, okay, so I think a movie like this is really hard to do well
Yeah.
because if you read the book is it's so mental,
Mm.
it's so in your mind, and it's so much about headspace. There's so many scenes in the book where Siddharth is basically just contemplating. What was that Vidya Balan movie you told me about, her Bengali debut, where you said there's a lot
Oh,
of scenes
right.
of her just looking off in the
Yeah.
distance?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in Siddharth too, right? Like it's a very lot of things going on in the mind sort of a thing as opposed to actual actions happening.
Mm-hmm.
um but I feel like books like that are so hard to translate onto screen. Like that's so hard to do because not that many things happen. So to what extent should we be blaming director Conrad Brooks for
Even
not being
trying.
able to, I mean, I give him props for trying.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. When you were talking, when you first started talking about this film, I, for some reason, I was thinking about the Apu films, um,
Okay.
because that is also a story of a young man who's trying to figure some stuff out. Although we see him as a boy as well, which I think
Yes.
helps a lot.
Yeah.
But they are darling and wonderful and and humane and all these things that
Yeah.
this film is not. And I was trying to think about some of the differences because, but there's actually kind of more that happens there, even though some of what happens is sort of contained to just a few people or impacts only a few people or whatever. But it's still, there's an outward turning to the world of Apu
Yeah.
that is lacking in this. So that this really is navel gazing, and the Apu films are not. Even though Apu does a lot of thinking, and as you were saying, just now, I was like, oh, what if they had cast Sumitra Chatterjee, who is very good at portraying thinking? He's pushing it age wise.
Mm.
By the 1972, Shashi's actually only 3 years older than he is, but I think he reads as
Oh.
younger somehow. Um, but if they'd given this to, Sumitra Chatterjee in the mid 60s, maybe we would have had a slightly better product. But I don't, I just, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think that this is not really a thing to be filmed successfully,
Yeah.
probably.
I think also one of the differences, like with Apu, like your sympathies lie with him from the beginning because
Yeah.
you know he doesn't have like a very
Yeah.
privileged circumstance, and
Yeah.
so
Not at
much of
all.
Apu's story is just about him trying to get by and
Yeah.
just kind of survive in this world,
And in
right?
Apu,
Like
people abandon him because bad things happen to them, where this person voluntarily goes off and does these
like
things,
in this
which,
book he has the most supportive parents. He's like, I want to go off and become like, an ascetic, and his dad is like, fine, and he goes. And then he's never married or anything
right.
like that, so it's not like he's renouncing anything or anything is taken away from him. Like literally this movie opens with Shashi Kapoor just complaining to Ramesh Sharma, to Govinda, about how dissatisfied he is. I'm like, boy, you need to go get a job. How about you go get a job and you work for all those hours? You will not have time to be dissatisfied because you'll come home and have dinner and do the dishes and watch TV. Well, they didn't have TV, but you'll watch like The Birds or something, and then you won't have time to be obsessive about stuff. So it's very hard for most people, including myself, to have a lot of sympathy for someone who comes from very good financial circumstances and doesn't have to struggle and is still complaining about how their life feels empty. But we have seen in Charulata how ennui and boredom and a lack of novelty and a lack of having a purpose in life can be filmed beautifully. So maybe it's just like a Ray versus everything else situation then. Maybe it's like just leave it to Ray.
Yeah.
Give
Ray
the
versus
Siddharth script to
everybody.
Ray and he'll do it,
Well, and again, the learning here doesn't, it serves him only, I think,
Yeah.
right? Because he encounters all these other people who already have the wisdom or the outlook or whatever that he seems to be seeking and that he needs to hear, I
Yeah.
think.
Have you read this really, really old book that I read when I was a teenager because I was a weird child? It's called The Pilgrim's Progress.
No, no, but I know what you mean.
It's a tome, and I
Why have
read
you
it.
read the, oh gosh, sorry.
I don't know. I read everything. I was very strange. I read like 7 books at a time, and just I read all kinds of nonsense. And I hated The Pilgrim's Progress, but it reminds me of The Pilgrim's Progress. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I really feel like Siddhartha, the character in both book and movie, has main character syndrome.
Mm.
Like he's the definition of main character syndrome, which is also how I feel about a lot of the men that Imtiaz Ali writes. So it's this very like, woe is me, am I special? Answer is no, you're not special. None of us are. But I do also think that it's very difficult to get into this book and get into this movie unless you have an inherent interest, honestly, in Buddhism. You cannot divorce that
Mm.
philosophy from this. And I think one of the reasons that this book speaks so much to my husband, and he loves it so much, is because he's done Vipassana for many years. Like he's done like,
Mm.
the 10-day thing where they don't talk to anyone. He pays money to go do that. I'm like, why? Why? Yeah,
Oh,
he's done that. Like he'll go to Oregon and he'll do like the 10-day Vipassana thing where you do not utter a word to anybody. And
wow.
apparently this is supposed to be great. Like, bear in mind, I would never.
Sounds awful.
Um, it's terrible. And I have so many friends here because like I live so close to Berkeley that
Oh.
actually are like, I mean, I live close to Berkeley. I have friends who are like meditation teachers. I have one acquaintance that spends 3 months every year in Dharamsala
Mm.
in India. And here she's like a restorative justice lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
attorney. And so it's kind of like, I think that crowd that is very into like Buddhism and Vipassana and meditation and what is our place in the world. Like
Mm-hmm.
the philosophical minded people, I think, are probably going to get a lot more out of this book and this movie than you and I will. Yeah.
What we have gotten out of it, however, is the very hot take that Shashi Kapoor's eyelashes are a national treasure.
They are beautiful. I was
Beautiful.
actually low-key irritated because there was a scene of his, like he's like three-quarter and his eyes are
Yeah,
downcast and he's supposed to be like sad and
yeah.
his eyes are I was like, what are you so upset about? You have the most gorgeous lashes and you probably aren't even wearing mascara. How dare you?
And they put him in like, I think so. He goes through many looks in this film at the
Yes.
different stages, and sometimes he's got like slightly wild hair and a wild beard, or
Did you like the mustache, Shashi? I didn't think you would.
no, not really. But it's, I mean, it's okay because he's pretty beautiful in all of them. Honestly, it's really a testament to how beautiful of an actor
Yeah.
of a human he was.
Well, he has
Um,
pretty privilege, as
he
Kamla
really
points
has
out.
pretty privilege, but even in the so like after he works with the merchant and he's gained worldly goods and they've got him all dressed up in finery,
Yeah.
like looks like $1 million, looks like $1 million in his more aesthetic
Yeah.
outfits. I wasn't sure. There are some things that are clearly wigs, but then there are others where I think it's his actual like facial hair and head hair and everything. I'm just like how,
Oh,
and yet the eyelashes I could all the way
yes.
through. I'm like this is criminal.
So beautiful.
How is this allowed?
I know. Oh my God. Can we talk about? Okay, I know I already raved about how good I think Simi Gurewal's acting was. I was very pleased with her in this movie. However, first of all, the only voice of reason in this book gets killed by a snake bite.
Yeah.
Was Herman Hesse like an early fan of Manmohan Desai before Manmohan Desai was even born? Like, what was happening? Like, this book was written in 1922, but
Well,
she dies
and
of a snake bite,
does the woman who enjoys sex have to die? That's what I kept wondering about. But
right?
I
The
didn't wonder about it enough
courtesan.
to go researching what Hesse has had to say about this or anything because I'm curious and yet I don't care.
I was like, of
But
course, you killed off my favorite character with a snake
yeah,
bite. And she dies of a snake bite right before she's going to go meet the Buddha, because
yeah,
she has talked about how when she gets to be of a certain age, she's going to
yeah,
renounce all her worldly possessions and
yeah,
like follow the Buddha. And so she's gone looking for him. And that scene, both in the book and the movie, reminded me of Guide.
sure.
Where all the people, all the throngs are coming
Mm-hmm.
in from everywhere to meet this one seminal human being that it's their
Mm-hmm.
dream to see the Buddha, right? Like in the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to go see him. And I was happy for her. I was like, Kamla, you go, girl. I hope you get to meet the Buddha. And, like that's
No.
cool. And then she gets killed by a snake bite and she flails about and does like a chukker. And then she falls screaming. And I was like, everything I complimented you on your natural acting on, I'm going to take it back. That was not natural at all.
I
It
wonder if
was
Conrad Brooks
terrible.
was like, I've seen mainstream Hindi films. Let's do it.
Yeah. He was like, no, no, don't play it so like, you have to like,
Tone
it's a big
schmoan.
deal. Yeah. Just flail around. It was ridiculous. I was like, what is happening over here? And then that boy, I wanted to slap him. So that's Kunal Kapoor
Mm-hmm.
in his debut role.
Mm-hmm.
He was so terrible. He's
He's
such a
mean.
brat. He's so
Yeah.
mean. And then he's being raised by Siddhartha and Vasudev. And I was like, oh God, what is this? What
I
is
don't really
this
blame him
book?
too much. His mother has just been killed, and you know,
Yeah. And
this
he has
random
to go
guy is
live
going to
with
take care
Mr.
of
Main
him.
Character
Yeah, I mean,
Syndrome.
yeah.
That boy also has main character syndrome. So it's like, the two cannot be together.
Who is more annoying, Siddhartha or Devdas?
Oh, Devdas. I mean,
The
at
pinnacle
least
has
Siddharth
not been
isn't.
eclipsed.
Yes, at least Siddharth is not drinking and he doesn't have the bad breath and he's not passed out,
And
so it's
he's
fine.
trying.
He's trying.
And he also does not seem to really leave destruction in his wake.
Mm-mm.
So his
He doesn't.
his miseries and navel gazing are all very self-contained and
Yeah.
everything. So there's that.
He's also like actually kind of good at his job. Like there's a very
Oh
interesting
yeah.
like this book is really worth reading, I would say. There's this very interesting paragraph about how Kamaswamy, the merchant, is really irritated with Siddharth because when he sends Siddharth to go do like trade or whatever, Siddharth does not care about the outcomes of anything. So when he goes and does trade and it's very profitable for them, he's fine. When they go and do trade and it's
Yeah.
not particularly profitable, he's fine. When people can't really pay him what he would like for his wares, he's fine. He's fine with everything. Like, because again, he doesn't have that attachment to the outcome that the merchant has, which is, of course, what he should be doing as a good Buddhist, is not to be caring that much about the outcome and doing it for the sake of doing it. And it was like really interesting to me to see that you're thinking at least he's not that person that harangues people to or tries to like get more money from them or tries to screw them over or anything, because like honestly he just doesn't care that much. And so that lack of caring at least means that he's not going to be one of those terrible people that wants to take advantage of the poor.
Yeah.
So because he doesn't care. He's not greedy. He's not that interested in pilfering from you to line his own pockets. So no, he doesn't leave that wake of destruction that Dedas has. He just is very pleased with himself quite
Yeah.
a lot.
He is. He is.
So, but I'm like the movie was silly, and I could wait for it. Oh, can I just say I loved the music by Hemant Kumar. I thought it
Yes.
was so lovely.
He's wonderful.
Yes, and it's always so nice hearing his voice. That one song
Hmm.
that he sang was lovely. Now, again, perhaps some homework could have been done because all the songs in this movie are in Bengali, but they're clearly not in Bengal.
That so when I first watched this movie, I think it was before I had really seen any Bengali films, so I don't think that that like slapped me in the face. But this
Yeah,
time, after one, I was like, wait a minute, what was?
yeah.
Also, why not Sanskrit?
Yeah. So in the book, they don't say where he lives. We don't
Sure.
know where he could be
Yeah.
anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't tell you.
Yeah.
But in the movie, the way the people were dressed and everything, I was getting very strong like Rajasthan, Kutch, Gujarat border
Mm.
vibes. I was getting very strong Rajasthan vibes because there's that montage of
Yeah.
singing and dancing where
Palaces.
the
Yeah.
women are wearing what looks very Rajasthani Marwadi to me.
Yeah.
So if you're in the Western India and you're in Rajasthan, Kutch, or that area, I don't know why you have Bengali music. However, I will not complain because I like the soundtrack. But it would have
Hmm.
been perhaps more appropriate to have more like Rajasthan based folk music. And I think that would have really sounded very good
Hmm.
also. But I think
Hmm.
Conrad Brooks just didn't care. To him, it was like, well, it's still Indian.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only thing I would say. I did enjoy I enjoyed the cinematography. I enjoyed the costuming. I thought Simi Garewal's outfits were absolutely gorgeous, especially her bouffants that they
Yeah.
did with her hair. And did you notice, like in their like lovemaking scene, it was very giving Mohenjo-daro
Oh yeah.
statuette vibes,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like they clearly tried to do
Yeah.
that. So I kind of enjoy that
Yeah.
too. So overall, I would say the movie is like
The
I think it's
look
for
is
sure
very good.
completist.
The visuals
Yes.
are very good. Yeah.
Yes. It's just, I think you needed you needed Ray to translate this book into a movie. But other than that, I think it's a good movie for Shashi Completists to watch.
Yeah.
I think it's a good movie for Simi Garewal
Hmm.
fans to watch. I very much enjoyed watching Simi in it.
I think if you're interested in films set in ancient India, which we
Yeah.
are, like I think it's
Yeah.
a notable inclusion. It's a very unusual experiment in some ways. So I
Yeah.
think that's, it's worth watching, but set your bar fairly low, I would say.
Yeah. But I will also say at least it has a narrative,
Yeah.
unlike say when we watched Gajgamini and we were like, what the fuck is
Blah, blah,
happening?
blah. Yeah.
Right. So at least there's a story. It's quite true to the book, I would say.
It's
So
also
yeah,
only what, an hour and
mixed
20
feelings.
minutes long,
It was
so
like an hour 45 maybe.
so we
It
had a
was really
film we
short.
showed a film at work last night, and I was asking one of the staff how it went, and they were like, "Oh, it was so long. It was 3 hours." I was like, "Oh,
Oh.
you got give it to me. I can do it."
Right. Yeah, well, I'm glad. I have to say, like one of my favorite things about this podcast. I mean, I like many things about doing this podcast with you,
Hmm.
but one of my favorite things is that I always have such a never-ending, always
Yeah.
expanding watch list of movies and also list of books. And the fact that we have to do scheduling, we have to figure out what episodes we're going to do, kind of forces me to get off my butt and actually watch, because I've
Right.
been wanting to watch Siddhartha for quite a
Yeah.
while. And I'm only 15 years late to reading the book. So I finally did it.
Nice.
So yay me. Also, yay for attachment.
Yes, yay for attachment. Let me tell you about Sammy and Rosie Get Laid, which is a
Yes.
very interesting film from 1987 by Stephen Frears, the British director who did The Queen and High
Hmm.
Fidelity, My Beautiful Laundrette. Really lovely filmography.
I love My Beautiful Laundrette. It's such a good movie.
I haven't seen that in so long. I feel like
Hmm.
this made me want to rewatch that. I think I watched it when I was in college and like haven't revisited it. Um,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Hanif Qureshi also write My
yes.
Son the Terrorist?
Oh, I do not know. Probably,
Okay, I'll
probably.
Google it, but I
Um,
think it.
This is a movie about. So I want to issue a spoiler warning because I want to be clear about this. And there are some
Mm.
things in this that are a little, that I found a little like hazy as they were happening. And in the retrospect, I was like, oh, but then, so if you mind, I won't give no, I will give major spoilers. I'm sorry. Tap out if you don't want to hear them. Anyway, this movie is almost 40 years old, which was striking to me to think that the 80s are 40 years ago. I do know how math works,
It's
but it just
crazy.
was a little overwhelming to me. So this movie takes place in London in the mid to late 80s. They are very clearly referencing the 1985 Brixton riots in the predominantly Black Caribbean neighborhood of the London area called Brixton. There are riots happening all the time during this movie. So there are people throwing bricks, there's flames, the police are out with all their riot gear attacking Londoners. It's pretty rough, and especially as we say this in March 2026 in the United States, like this is very familiar. Um, and I was very interested to see how that was depicted and everything. And I actually went down a little rabbit hole reading about the real life events of
Mm.
1985. Um, Basically, as far as I can gather, an innocent black woman was shot by British police. She did survive, but and there's a memorial to her in Brixton that you can see. Frances Barber, who is an English actress I've seen in a million billion things, plays Rosie, and her husband is Sammy, who is played by Ayub Khandin, who I believe is a playwright, right? A British playwright and writer.
Not sure.
Um, who I've seen in an episode of Poirot. He's around. It's not a major role in Poirot, but I had just seen that. And his father is Shashi, who is a Pakistani former politician who comes to London to spend time with his son and his daughter-in-law. And he is, you know, I'm not sure how old he's supposed to be
Yeah, I was just gonna
exactly.
ask you.
Let's say 60, something like
Okay.
that, I would say. So Shashi in real life is about 50 when this is made. So let's age him
So
up
they
about 10
aged
years,
him?
a little bit maybe.
Okay.
Um, and he's come to London, it would seem, to do a couple of tasks. One is put some pressure on to have grandchildren in manner of, Dizzy Dad.
Yeah.
And then the other seems to be to transfer a large chunk of money to Sammy. And it was not clear to me if this was because he was kind of an absentee dad, it sounds like. Um, is he something else is at play here? Or is he trying to get money out of Pakistan because he's
Mm,
about to be investigated or something like that?
okay. Like trying
What
to
we,
hide it.
yeah, what we learned throughout the course of the movie is that while he was a freedom fighter, basically, and so he must be at least 60 if he was about 20 during, yeah, so maybe 65, 70. Anyway, he's also been a very bad human when he got power.
Okay.
And there are people in the film who have learned this about him and questioned him about it. And he's pretty evasive and blustery and exactly the way you'd think a politician who has no interest in actually talking to people would be. He's so good at it. He's
Yeah.
really good at that
Is he
in
like
this
super
movie.
elitist?
Yeah, yeah. And the character is supposed to have lived in England for a while earlier in his life, and he comes back
Hmm.
and he's like talking about how London is the center of the civilized universe and everything. And meanwhile, they step out into Brixton and like there's, you know, people knocking police vans over, and the police are striking people with clubs, and like all this horrible stuff is happening.
Hmm.
And you can see he's like, oh no, what have I? No, where am I? They compared London to Beirut when somebody compares London to Beirut, um, and he this very interesting figure appears. First is his taxi driver from the airport, and then you see this man later, and you find out eventually that this man is basically a ghost who represents the people that, when he was in political power, that Shashi's character, abused, had beaten, had killed, things like that.
I'm suddenly so interested in
It's
this movie. You said
very
Ghost, and I was like,
and I've seen this movie before. I did not remember any of that. I don't know. So, and there's a scene later in the movie where because at first I thought, oh, the taxi driver lives in the neighborhood too, right? But then you're like, what's going on here? So it's very interesting. There are a lot of like little bits like that to kind of keep
hmm,
your eyes on. Sammy and Rosie have a very unconventional marriage. There seems to be what we would now call ethical non-monogamy, I think, happening. So
okay.
there's a lot of sex in this film, as the title would suggest. But it's kind of I don't think it's sex for titillation purposes. I think these are people who
Hmm.
are desperate to connect in some
Hmm.
way, and this is one of the ways that they try. And that includes Shashi's character because he reconnects with the woman he loved when he lived in England decades ago. And she has some interesting lines about kind of waiting for him all these years, although she has married and has had children who are now,
Hmm.
grown and out of the house, but they reconnect, which is really interesting. And there's just so these are about like early 30 somethings, I'd say, who they have this kind of bohemian lifestyle in London, and all the interesting people they interact with. He is an accountant of some kind, but he's has an affair with a photographer, an American photographer. So that, you kind of hear them talking about a few things. His wife is a social worker, so you early in the film you see her visiting a client who has actually died in the bathtub. So like it's rough. There's some rough stuff in this film, but it is also really interesting. The other main character in it is someone. Do you remember the band Fine Young Cannibals?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, you might recognize some of their music from the 80s, early 90s, but the lead singer of Fine Young Cannibals is in this film, which I was like, oh, Roland Gift. Huh? And he plays this sort of, he's almost a manic pixie dream boy in a way, I would
Ooh.
say, but he kind of goes by
Okay.
different names depending who he's talking to. He lives in a trailer that is in some like barren land under an expressway interchange, and there are developers trying to get the land that he's on. His trailer is covered with, I believe, quotes from T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland.
Oh, I love
um,
the wasteland.
yeah, so there's a lot going on here. Again, some people do read more as symbols than as actual characters, but somehow it worked a lot better for me. It was very interesting to see these two films. I saw one day and one the other. So
Right.
this is much more successful, I would say. That
Mm.
said, I did look up some reviews of this, and the one that I dug into most was from, I believe, the Los Angeles Times, and they hated this movie when it came out. They said it was stilted and silly, and and they praised Shashi, but they're pretty unpleased with the rest of it, and seem to be pretty disappointed in Stephen Frears um,
Okay.
and um, Hanif Kureishi. But yeah, I would tentatively recommend this film again for Shashi Completus. It's a great one. It's all in English. It's very interesting, I think,
Yeah.
and especially if you are old enough to remember bits of the 80s, even if you weren't in Britain. But this is a look at Thatcher's Britain, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and you're dealing not only with, for once, it's not only white people that we're seeing, which is great. So we're seeing different kinds of people, mostly South Asian and Black,
Yeah.
Caribbean Black, I would assume. But it's pretty interesting. You see people with different sexual orientations. You see there's a little child in one part, and I will say that I will issue a content warning here for death by suicide
Mm.
also, which is possibly figurative. It might be. I think it actually happens within the film. It might also be treated as sort of like someone is imagining or something, but I think it's supposed to be real within the world of the film. So I just
Mm.
will put that there. But I would recommend this film. It also is on YouTube. Not a great print, but it's there if you would like to try it.
It's giving me a little bit of like East is East vibes, right? Like it's East is East, My Beautiful Laundrette. I
Mm-hmm.
remember what the book was. I mean, the movie, My Son the Fanatic.
Right.
That one is really good. That one is by
Right.
Hanif Kureishi. I misspoke and called it My Son the Terrorist, but it's My Son the Fanatic. So,
Okay.
I mean, all of that is. And then have you seen Brick Lane? Brick Lane has like a little bit of
Yeah.
that vibe also.
Yeah.
But mostly East is what I'm thinking of. But
Yeah.
it sounded as if you really like this movie. So why were you saying that you would tentatively recommend it? You wouldn't wholeheartedly recommend it?
It's a little weird.
Okay.
I mean, you have to be ready to watch people who are symbols and things
Mm,
like that, right? And stuff does happen in the movie. It's not necessarily just a navel gazing kind of thing. Although
yeah.
the people are sort of doing some moments of like, who am I and what is this relationship that I say I'm in? Like, what is this marriage? The
Right.
title characters. That's something. I'm not sure that's the point of the film, but that's definitely running under there where you're like, why are these two people committed to each other, or why do they, and are they, and then what does that mean? And
Hmm.
I haven't gone back to a lot of 80s films to think about what they're perhaps saying about monogamy or not, but now it's kind of interesting to say like these, they were living a lifestyle that we have, more of us have a name for now than we did
Right.
probably in the 80s. But of course I was also 13 when this movie came out, so I would not have
Right.
known. But anyway, yeah. So if you're like I love Shashi and Masala, and that's where I want to stay, then this is not neither of these are the movie for you. But you probably
Right.
wouldn't have listened to this whole episode anyway. But
I feel
it's
like I would
another.
like this because
Mhm.
I like anything by Hanif Qureshi
Yeah,
and I love East
yeah,
Disease. So I feel like
yeah,
I would probably like this. For some
yeah.
reason, my brain keeps thinking that this movie should have Umpuri in it instead
Oh,
of
totally.
Shashi, you know.
Yeah,
But I'm sure Shashi was great,
he
but my
was
brain keeps telling
great.
me Umpuri should
Yeah,
be in it.
he Ompuri I think would have
Or
also
Saeed
been good in
Joffrey.
this.
Saeed Joffrey could have been
Yeah,
great.
I I think that Shashi plays shady politician better than either of those two would,
Hmm.
frankly, especially in a sort of debonair, or at least he thinks he's debonair kind of way.
Ooh,
He has
okay.
a Shashi has a like rich
Oh
vibe to
yeah,
him,
the
right? That
Kapoors
the
are rich.
Yeah, and is he rich by London standards? I don't know, but he's clearly rich and powerful by Pakistan standards in the
Right.
1980s, and that is not nothing, right? So
Yeah.
powerful. Someone says to him like, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Desi's watched your career with interest from London, from
Mm.
Britain. We were interested in what you were doing in Pakistan." So they don't go into that too deeply, but it
Right.
is interesting. So, um, also the idea of like transitioning out of a role of power into being
Mm.
more of a and like did he retire or was he forced out? I'm not sure
Right.
if that was made clear. I didn't pick up on it
Or
for what
like a
that's worth, but
spectator.
yeah. So I think yeah, I definitely think this is worth watching.
Okay.
But it is a little unusual and I there are moments of levity in this film, but it is not light. Like Thatcher's
Mm.
Britain is not
Right.
light, and these urban riots based basically on police and other official discrimination that lead to a fair amount of violence. People died. You can go and see photos from these riots.
Mm.
They're really quite compelling. Like buildings burned out, police that have been hit in the head with bricks and like blood dripping down their face, and
Wow.
like all, and I'm sure of citizens as well. But you see the photos I found more showed the police like that. Um, Cars tipped
Wow.
over and burning, like just a lot of damage, um,
Mm.
human and otherwise. So this is a rough time period. I think especially if you're not white in
Hmm.
parts of London and other metro areas in Britain, I'm sure, and other areas too. So and yeah, so it's this is a little off topic, but I'll just say it. When the Mellon felon came back into office, I had friends my age, so sort of second half of Gen X, who were saying, God, everything was so much better in the '80s, and making comparisons to
Mm.
Reagan. I'm like,
Right.
we were children in the '80s, and I think
Right.
that's why most of us think things were better. And
Yeah.
most of the people I've talked to, although not all, are straight and consider themselves allies. But I'm like, do you remember AIDS? Because I do.
Right. Yeah.
um, Reagan's America
Well,
was
there's so many
pretty
people that
awful.
don't even
So,
remember 9/11 anymore.
well, right, right.
Like, I
But
mean,
people our
they
age
know,
do,
but they
right?
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No.
so for
Yeah.
people our age to talk about the '80s with rose-colored glasses, I think that's very
Hmm.
important to knock that off.
Yeah.
And this movie is good at doing that, in my opinion. Am I an expert on '80s Britain? No, I'm not, but I did live there in the '80s, interestingly, a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I mean, 92, 93. I remember we were still living in Nigeria and
mhm,
all my grandparents and everyone was still in Mumbai and the riots happened.
right,
And I still remember like my dad staying up all night, like freaking
yeah,
out, to call from Nigeria to India during that day.
mm,
You had to book what was called a trunk call.
mm-hmm,
You can just call. You had to go through
right,
the telephone exchange and give them the landline number and blah blah blah, and they couldn't get through because phone lines were down.
yeah,
And when my grandfather finally managed to call my father, like he booked a reverse trunk call basically, he told me that he told my dad that he hadn't slept all night, and my dad was
mm,
like, "Oh, were you just scared?" And he said, "No, I could hear that people were being hacked to pieces on the main road outside our house."
my God,
Yeah. And we had no way of going to India and like
yeah,
making sure my
yeah,
grandparents
of
who were
course,
elderly at that point were okay. So when
yeah.
people say things like the 80s were so great or the 90s were so great, I hate to be that older person that remembers history. No time was ever great.
Yeah.
Bad things have always happened. It's more a question of what bad thing is happening right now, because
And
bad
to
things have
you.
always happened, and what
Yeah,
bad things are happening to you, because
yeah,
bad things have always happened. There's
yeah,
never been a time, I think, when people could just be like, oh, how nice it is to live in precedented times.
right,
That's just never been a thing, right?
right.
Yeah. So I have a question for you
Yeah,
regarding Shashi.
yeah,
Obviously, we love wicked and evil Shashi from
we
Junoon, where he's
do.
so nasty and horrible, but does that role so incredibly well. Um, what other evil Shashis do you know? I mean, clearly this Shashi is a bad Shashi also.
Yeah, Shashi from Utsav is not the greatest human, although he's a little bit redeemed at the end,
Mm, mm.
or softened a little bit, I would say. Um, well, I believe this was last year when did I talk about Jeb Jeb Pulkile? Was that for our Shashi episode or his birthday?
Oh,
I
I
think
don't
that was
remember, but
the main Shashi episode.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
fond of that guy, but he's clearly not presented as evil, right?
right,
He's
right.
the hero, but he's pretty evil in my opinion. Um, He must be evil. Well, the guy in custody is pretty hard to
Yes.
have affection for.
Yeah.
Um,
Muhafiz, yes.
yeah.
And didn't Shashi from Al Blochole rape Sharmila when she was passed out?
Yeah. Agale
Yeah.
Lagja. Yeah.
Agale Lagja, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. What did I
Well,
say? Is it
because
Agale Lagja?
you said Blau Chile.
Oh, sorry. Yes. That would be the
Um,
Ashura movie.
right. Yeah, that's not good. Again, presented
No.
as medical wisdom,
Yeah.
but not good. Not good. I mean, if you're going to be a mainstream Hindi film hero, you're going to do some things that in retrospect were like,
Yeah. But it's interesting to me, especially when Shashi does bad things or when Shashi is a bad person, because I think to most people who have seen most of his mainstream movies, he is really the cop brother from
yeah,
Divar.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the Shashi,
Absolutely.
right? That
Absolutely.
is the
That's the
fine,
role. Hmm.
upstanding human who jiske paas maa hai, and he is going to tell Amitabh what a terrible brother he is, what a crook he is. And if that's the image you have of Shashi, and he has played that
Hmm.
incredibly righteous person in so
Hmm.
many films, right? If that's the image you have, then I think that makes his negative Shashis, like especially Junoon Shashi,
Yeah.
that much more interesting and attractive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Remind me, the Shashi from Vijeta, is he good Shashi, bad Shashi, or neutral Shashi?
I'd say good,
Because I
but a
haven't
little
seen that movie.
complicated because he's
Okay,
he's had an affair before the
right.
film, the time of the film, and the family is dealing with the fallout from that.
Okay,
So he's not perfect. He's not a villain, but he's not perfect by any
right.
means. And
Interesting.
Shashi in Kaliug, he
Mm,
does some business shiz, so
yeah.
and then gets punished. So,
That's a very
but
shrewd
that's
and
a complicated
manipulative
one.
Shashi.
Yeah. He is unafraid to take on these roles, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked about how this is one of the things we really like about him. And there are very few other
Hmm.
people from that time period that we could even have this kind of set of conversations about, that he does these really interesting things.
Yeah.
The two films that we've talked about today, for me, neither of them is nearly as
Mm.
compelling as the Merchant in Ivory that he does, but they are fascinating things in his filmography. And the fact that he's doing one of them bang in the middle of his main hero years, and then doing another one, Jennifer Kendall has died, and his, life is beginning to change pretty radically. And
Hmm.
some of the, their appearance wise, there's not a whole lot of difference between this character and some of the, dads, uncles, doctors, whatever else he plays in the late 80s in more mainstream Hindi films. But the essence of this character is, now I haven't seen as many of those, but
Right.
this is a pretty different character in essence. I would say, for starters, he's Pakistani,
Right.
which, I'm sure some actors now would not do.
Right.
So, you know,
I mean, obviously he was doing a lot that like the other heroes weren't doing of the time. I mean, Amitabh Bachchan was arguably the biggest star of
oh
that
yeah,
era, and
yeah,
Amitabh hasn't done
no.
these kind of offbeat films at all.
And you're
And
not going to
then,
put Rajesh Khanna in
you
Siddhartha.
know, or Vinod Mehra or Vinod
Right.
Khanna for that matter.
No,
Yeah, you're not going to
no.
put any of those
He's
people
the
in it.
only choice, I think, of
Yeah.
the sort of major people that we could
Yeah,
name.
because
Yeah.
then you have the other people who are like the Ompuris and the Nasruddin Shahs, but they're not able to straddle them. Like there's these two worlds, and there's this like Venn
Yeah.
diagram, and Shashi's in that middle, right?
Yeah.
There's not very many people who can do that, and to some extent, I think with Nasir and Ompuri, I do think that their looks and their physicality also
Yeah.
stereotype them a little bit in the
Yeah.
kind of roles that they can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shashi kind of does the only thing he can. I mean, even in his own family, when you look at the other Kapoors, he's the one who has taken the most risks.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Raj Kapoor was kind of like the visionary in that, like he was
Yes.
a studio owner and a producer and a director and a writer and a thingy and a music composer and an actor, all the things, right? Like
Yeah.
all the hats, all the arrows in his quiver. But just in terms of acting, I do
Yeah.
think that Shashi just like
Oh yeah.
he did all the things, he tried all the things,
Mhm.
and sometimes he did a good job, and sometimes you were like, what were you thinking? But at least he
Mhm.
tried, and props
Mhm.
for that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Mhm.
okay, very cool.
I'm glad this was your idea to focus on this kind of film, and I'm glad that we did it, because for as many more years as we do our podcast, we can celebrate Shashi's birthday and do a
Yeah,
slightly different flavor of his films. Maybe we'll have Merchant and Ivory birthday one year, and we'll have,
yeah,
I think we've talked about the bulk of his Yash Chopra films, for example, already. So
yeah.
that's been covered. His Manmohan Desai films have been covered, but we'll have to find some other directors he worked with a couple of times
Yeah.
to do. And
I mean,
we've covered everything that he's produced,
yes,
except
Ajuba,
Ajuba.
your favorite. Maybe we'll have to do
Someday.
Ajuba for your birthday. It'll be like, happy birthday, Beth. Wax lyrical about Ajuba. I'll just hit the mute button for me. But what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something about Shashi, and I'm like losing. Oh, I was gonna say like it's like your idea was like let's do like a birthday episode for Shashi, and I was like okay, but like we need an angle. What should the
Yeah.
angle be? And then I was like, should we do like foreign produced like
Yeah.
productions or whatever? Can you imagine if I insisted that we do a birthday special for my favorite Kapoor, which is Shammi? He just plays rich princes all the time. That would be
But that
no
would be, but
angle.
also people like Shami, and I like Shami, so why not?
Yeah.
I mean, did we have an angle on our Sri Devi birthday episode? I don't think that we did. I think we
Yeah,
just,
we
oh
did.
no, no, we did all South films. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
we
So,
did Parupu Rojakal,
mhm.
the Red Rose original, and
And some
yeah,
others. Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
We did not do, I don't think we did Reka birthday this year, but
we didn't. Yeah, so many that we have to
our
choose
calendar
from
is
for her as
so
well.
many birthdays we have to put on our calendar.
I know, right? Well, we did Madhavi Mukherjee's
Oh yeah,
episode to celebrate her birthday, so that was fun.
that's right.
Um, okay, amazing. Did you have any thoughts before we sign off?
Just to reiterate, wow, what an interesting career this man
Yeah.
um, in part forged for himself and in part, I'm sure, responded to interesting requests and was in a position where he got some interesting requests. But I think he created the circumstances in which
Yeah.
that led to him being considered for this kind of thing. I mean, it's not only his work, but
Mhm.
I love that this exists, and to be a Shashi Kapoor fan is a really fun journey because there's something out there for whatever mood you're in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, his filmography is so vast. Can you
So
imagine if
interesting.
someone's favorite Kapoor was Rajiv Kapoor?
No.
There'd be like three movies for them to watch.
We joke here and there about like, oh, I've never met a whatever fan, but that
Yeah.
really is when I don't think I've ever met a Rajiv Kapoor fan. I really
I
don't.
think, but sometimes so Instagram now does not allow me to use like a lot of hashtags on our posts. Like I think it only allows us to do 4 or 5 now. But back in the day when I would put like a lot of hashtags, sometimes I would put like hashtag and like these random fan clubs would start like following us. And it was like Kamal Sadhna fan club. And I was like, Kamal Sadhna has a fan club? It was astounding to me.
Yeah.
There's a fan club for everyone. Sometimes I wonder if these fan clubs are like started by the star themselves, because otherwise I don't understand. But there's a lot of fan clubs on Instagram, which sometimes it's fun for me to go and read the unhinged
Mm.
thing that the people say. Um, Before we go, I wanted to ask you, what would you say? I'm going to ask you two questions. What is your favorite Shashi Kapoor movie of all time? And
Hmm.
also, what is your favorite Shashi Kapoor performance of all time? If they're the
Oh,
same, that's fine. But
I think that my favorite performance is probably Shakespeare Walla. I may have said something else at
okay.
another time, but I think that's what I think today. And
Okay.
it's certainly up there in my top five, right?
Okay.
Um, my favorite Shashi film really depends on what I want to see, you know? So having recently rewatched Kalapatar, that's way up there for me.
Yeah.
Um, I think I've said this before. I think he's good in Diwar, but there's so much else in there that's more powerful than he is. For me,
Yeah.
that is not a Shashi film. And I think I've said it, it irritates me that
Same.
that's
I
what he got a
agree.
film fare for. I'm like this,
Right.
like he is so amazing in so many things, and this thing where he's kind of the least of the, not maybe the least, but like, you know,
That is the one that everyone references,
and
though,
I get it.
right?
He's got that
Yeah.
heck of a line, and you've got that just horrendously ironic fate that he has in the
Yeah.
film.
So iconic.
It's very, very sad. And obviously
Yeah.
the Shashi Amitabh pairing is also one for the ages. So yeah, it just depends on what I am in the mood for. I don't know. Kali Yuga is still there too, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's my favorite
That's your favorite
Shashi
film?
film. Maybe.
And Shakespeare, all of her performance.
Maybe, or maybe
Okay.
Khalid for both of them, even. I don't know. Those
Okay.
are the last time I rewatched Shakespeare Walla, I did find it a little more kind of stagey, stilted, and kind of not exactly in the
Mm,
flavor you were discussing with Siddhartha, but kind of a little bit like that. But I love that movie so much that it didn't really bother me. I just like, oh, I hadn't really
yeah.
noticed that before. Oh, well, I'm still engaged with all this other stuff that I love. So, but yeah, maybe Kaliug. It's hard to say.
Okay.
What are yours?
My favorite performance is undoubtedly Junoon,
Sure.
just because he's so good in it and
He is
he's
so
so
good in it.
wicked in it. And I,
Yeah.
I want to throttle him. But also his pretty privilege makes me want to like kiss him too. So it's like a lot of conflicting feelings. There's just too many conflicting feelings when I watch Junoon. So Junoon for best performance.
Yeah.
And then in terms of movies, I love Junoon, but I also love New Delhi Times.
Sure.
And I love Kalyug also.
Yeah.
So that's a harder. But even between maybe Kalyug for best movie, but I love Junoon so much. Maybe I'll just pick Junoon for both my categories. Definitely my favorite Shashi performance, but also I would say my favorite Shashi Kapoor movie.
Sure.
And then right after that, it's a tie between Kalyug and New Delhi Times. I mean, his acting in New Delhi Times is great, but it's not something others couldn't do. Whereas Junoon, I
Ah,
cannot think of
mm-hmm,
anyone else as
mm-hmm.
Shashi.
He
Like,
has quite a few of those, I feel like, where only he could have done
yeah,
those things. And I think that is not something he gets enough credit for. Although,
right.
to be fair, I'm not au fait in a lot of conversations right now because I'm off
Mm,
Twitter and don't really use Instagram and stuff. So, but I felt like back when I was, back in blog days, I think that he was a little bit under, like, if you knew, you knew, but there were a lot of people who
right.
didn't seem to know, even though they'd seen a bunch of his stuff. I'm like, how have you not noticed? How has this not struck you?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
because I find it striking, but
But I think part of the problem also is that some of his best movies are so hard to find. I mean, now with YouTube, it's better,
it is better.
but
But yeah,
like, I don't even, like, for example, you still haven't been able to see New Delhi Times
that's
because of
right.
the subtitle
It
issue,
does not
right?
exist with
So
subtitles.
I feel like there is such a whereas everybody can watch Diwar.
Right,
Like it's
right,
there.
right.
So I think that is also part of the problem. Like if I were raving to someone about The Householder, you should watch it, it's so great, or like,
Yeah.
Muhafiz or whatever. I don't know where someone would find Muhafiz in
Mm,
custody. I don't know where they would find Householder. I can
mm,
guess, but YouTube isn't always going to help. Tommy Dan isn't always going to come to our rescue.
yeah,
What about subtitles? What if you need those? So
yeah.
I think some of his best work, and this is true of a lot of offbeat films in general, is that some of that stuff is just hard to find.
It is.
And
Yeah.
unless you are really a completist or really trying to go hunt
Uh
for
huh.
it, it's so difficult. And that's so sad,
Yeah.
you know?
And we'll just shout out, I don't know if it still exists, Al Mansour Video on Devon Avenue in Chicago, the only Indian video store I've ever been to that has a Shashi Kapoor section.
That is amazing. I was in Berkeley the other day and I saw this like Indian store. I didn't stop in because I was going to go hang out with some friends. And I saw this Indian store and they had this really olded movie poster, like old and like janky looking movie poster. You know which movie it was for? It was for
Hmm.
Janeman. That's like so old, like it's from the 90s. It's a Salman Khan Preeti Zinta. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's the only movie poster you have in your window. Like
Interesting. And
I wonder
somebody's
what their
favorite.
like DVD collection is like. I was
Yeah.
almost tempted to go in, but then I didn't want to be late. But that like cracked me up.
Like,
Okay,
explain
so
yourselves.
yeah, I
maybe,
really was.
maybe it's their portrait of Dorian Gray.
It could be.
Maybe it has to be
It
there.
could be. I should have gone in and asked like a few more like questions, like
Hmm.
piercing questions, put my
Next time.
detective hat on. I will try that next time. Okay, I think that concludes this episode. Happy Shashi birthday to everyone. Jupiter ki shubhkamnaye to everyone. And we will see you next week. In the meantime, in the comments, please let us know what you think about Shashi movies. Which of his have you seen? If you would like to provide us with a ranking of your favorite Shashi movies or Shashi performances, we would love to read that. Please do tell us if you have seen Sammy and Rosie Get Laid or if you have seen Siddhartha. We're curious to see. And then in the captions, we'll put the YouTube links for Siddhartha. I don't know if there's a YouTube link for
Yes.
Sammy and Rosie Get Laid. Okay, then we'll put both those links there. And if you're interested in watching, then please do watch. And we'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.